Darian Fenton.
Very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, I have been there. I really appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the committee stages of this debate. I wasn't on the select committee, the local government select committee, but I have been kept well briefed by our spokesperson and other members of the Labour caucus about what's been going on here. And I have to say it was pretty obvious what was coming earlier in the year when Nick Smith was still the Minister for Local Government before his hapless downfall. It was pretty obvious because there were patsy questions to himself in the House, patsy questions about rates, how much have rates increased by, about debt. And actually it was Nicky Wagner, I think, asking the patsy questions, wasn't it? I think it was actually, and maybe Jackie Dean had shared them as well. But patsy questions about rates, patsy questions about debt, patsy questions about staffing, and following the same pattern that we saw with his manufacturing of a crisis in ACC. And where did that end up? Where has that ended up? Not a pretty sight. Has not been a pretty sight, Nick Smith. And I would have thought your successor, David Carter, might have shown a bit more wisdom and would have paused to take a good look at this bill, as many people have urged him to do and urged the government to do, to slow down, to pause, to rethink this bill, that 700 written and oral submissions, the vast majority of which were opposed to, 78 councils opposed, up and down the country. People are concerned about this, and also concerned about the lack of consultation that was before this bill, before the changes were sent to Cabinet, the lack of consultation that's gone on up and down the country, as I said, with the various people who have come along and made submissions, not listened to, and here we have a bill back in the House just a few months later with no substantial amendments at all. No substantial amendments, so all of those people who took their time, substantial amendments that took their time to make a submission have been ignored. But haven't we got used to that with this government? Haven't we got used to them undermining democracy, undermining local democracy? And it's a Nick Smith special. Now, I have taken the time to put in a supplementary order paper, and I've done that for a couple of reasons. I, like every other ratepayer in the country, am affected by this bill. I'm affected by this bill, even though local government issues isn't something that get people marching. Or occasionally it gets people marching in the street. That's true in Christchurch. It gets people marching in the streets. But I'm concerned about the removal of the four well-beings: economic, social, cultural and environmental. And so I've taken the trouble to put in an SOP to resubmit something that the national government foolishly voted against when I put it forward as a private member's bill, which was about libraries being protected from charges. And as I thought about it, there's an SOP. It's a good one. It's a good SOP, yes it is. And when I thought about it, the reason I did that, I could have gone further, but the reason I did that, people have been talking to me about the provisions of services by local governments, and I started to feel very concerned about the impact of this bill. Has this government, for example, told local communities that where early childhood centres are housed on council land, they could end up paying rent? Are they going to guarantee, and I'd like to ask the member and the Minister and the Chair, can he guarantee that this bill will not result in early childhood centres on council land having to pay rent, shifting the cost to the taxpayer, shifting the cost to the parents that attend those? And Nicky Wagner can look puzzled, but that's a genuine question, and I look forward to an answer from the Minister and the Chair. If he can guarantee that, I'll be very happy, and I'll be very happy to go back to the community that I work in and tell them that Craig Fost has guaranteed that there will be no charges, no rental charges for early childhood education centres on council land under this bill. Another question that I have is about community houses. Now, every centre throughout the country has community councils that are on council land, that are by and large funded by councils. Now, what's going to happen with those under this bill, Mr Chair?
Darian Fenton.
What's going to happen with those under this bill? And there she goes, Jackie Dean, screwing up her nose. Look, I'm simply asking for a guarantee, for an assurance that community houses will not become user pays. User pays. I mean, of course, we all know that the government doesn't support protecting libraries from user pays because they voted down a very good members' bill that I proposed, so they don't do that. And then there's things like sports facilities and grounds and kids' play areas and parks and arts facilities. Again, I ask the Minister in the chair, will he give this side of the House a guarantee that this bill will not result in user pays for the services, for the community services that are provided and valued from people? Because if he can't, I'm looking forward to going and telling the parents of children who play in the local park, of parents of children who attend the early childhood centres, that this government cannot give them a guarantee that we are not moving to a user pay system under this bill with the removal of the four well-beings. I don't think there has been proper discussion and consultation with communities about this, Mr Chair. I don't think the consequences of this bill are well understood. And I don't think some people in this House understand the extent of the work that is done by local councils and local boards. Now, I appreciated the comments from Tracy Martin because actually there was a bill that came forward to allow Rodney to vote on their destination, sponsored by me because the National Government wouldn't sponsor it. And guess what? The National Party voted that down too because they don't believe in local democracy. And that's what this bill does. It takes away local democracy. It's taking the local out of local government. There are so many things that could be affected by this. I mean, things like drainage in the local sports ground. You know, I mean, does that come under a core service or not? I know general drainage does, but does drainage in a sports ground come under it? There's things like all the youth programs that are funded. Are they affected by this? You know, will councils have to make a decision because they, cash-strapped councils are going to have to make a decision about youth programs.
Community safety.
And community safety, that's right. And things like enviro schools. Now, of course, they've already been slashed a bit under this government, but they still exist. But they're funded and supported by local government. Graffiti management, which is done by core. Well, I suppose they could do it, but actually they're funded and supported by local community groups who work with young people on making sure that they come to value their environment and they work to make sure that things like graffiti don't get away from us. All the little kids, in the park that I see on the North Shore every day, and I am looking forward to Jonathan Coleman going along and explaining to the Northcote community what's going to happen to their playgrounds that I know the local board has fought very, very hard for, has had issues about, and actually has been opposed and criticised by Jonathan Coleman in the local newspaper. All the little children that play in the areas that are provided by the local board, I'm really interested to have an answer so I can go back and tell those people that this government is prepared to guarantee that this bill will not mean that there will be user pays for kids to play on the jungle gyms. Mr Chair, I asked the Minister in the House again, I asked him to answer that. Well, Santa parades too, that's right. Santa parades, now will they be user pays? How will that work? What? Garden shows? Well, that's true. Garden shows? Well, that's right. You have to pay. Well, that's right. And one of the things that government doesn't seem to understand too the proposals for amalgamations in this bill too, restructuring costs, the costs end up being borne by the local council. I mean, that's what's happened in Auckland. So there's no wonder, actually, that they've ended up spending a bit more. They had to make thousands of people redundant and pay redundancy pay. And, of course, they've now had to re-employ a lot of them because they didn't have enough staff to do the work. So it's no wonder. That's the sort of thing that will happen under this bill. But as I said, Mr Chair, a very simple guarantee from the Minister and the Chair would be very welcome. The second part of my SOP is about ports, and I'll hope that I'll have an opportunity to talk about that a little bit later.
Nikki Kay.
Mr Chair, look, I'm very pleased to be speaking on this piece of legislation, the Local Government Act 2002 Amendment Bill. Can I start by acknowledging the hundreds of submitters that